I think it was brilliant. I think the games itself, the Commonwealth Games, from the facilities, putting the show on, we do put a good event on. The crowds are great. They were really into it. Walked around town an awful lot. Went to see some of the sports. So from beach volleyball, basketball, gymnastics. So the show itself, I think, was brilliant. And everybody really, really got into it. And the results-wise were really good at the same time. I mean, I spent most of my time, obviously, at the pool than everything else.
Look, when I was a youngster growing up, and I was very, very inspired by track and field, and the BBC used to have athletics on every Friday night. Every Friday night in my life, they used to be tuned in to athletics. And I always say about these things, I challenge anybody to name our best swimmers and, our people who have taken part in these Commonwealth Games and the Olympics, and suddenly the whole country gets behind them. There is just not an obligation on behalf of broadcasters to highlight events, and then they do for something like this, and lo and behold, they find out everybody loves them.
Yeah. I mean, historically, it was once every 4 years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You're right with athletics. It used to be on an awful lot more, and I think now they still cover the Diamond Leagues. In swimming terms, once every 4 years, Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, then World Championships and Europeans. We're doing the Europeans next week, actually, so we're showing a little bit more.
But what would you say? I think it's really hard for supporters, people really to get behind athletes and be there, because the public aren't educated. They don't know. Because they don't know, exactly.
Absolutely. We want household names.
But what would you say to people who will say, what's the point? Commonwealth Games, who cares? What's the point?
Everyone talks about the friendly games.
Yeah. And
it wasn't friendly sport. When you step on the line, you want to win. You want to beat the other person. But the friendly element comes from the fact that they all speak the same languages. In swimming terms now, we've got the International Swimming League, which is a new pro swim league, and they all train and swim together. So it's bringing everybody together a lot more and sharing those experiences. Why bother? I think for me, sports people highlight what's possible with the human body in whatever sport, discipline they choose to do. But it's not about being an Olympian or professional footballer. It's about health. So your physical health, your mental health, and the benefits you get socially from doing sport.
Yeah. We have a guy, Chris Akabusi. He's a regular on our show, good friend of ours.
Ever heard of him?
I've heard him. I know Chris well.
We were talking about the Commonwealth Games with him, and we asked him to bring in some of his medals, and he's got a sort of treasure chest in his living room, and he sort of was digging through his Olympics and his World Championships, and he couldn't find his Commonwealth Games medals. And we talked about, how they were only the Commonwealth Games. And I know this is something that Adam Peaty said, and you and him fell out a bit about this. Is there a snobbery within the sports world about the Commonwealth Games? And is it undervalued, do you think?
Yes, it is. I mean, I didn't fall out.
OK, ding-dong.
I just pulled him up on something. But the pulling up on something was that whole someone finishing. He wasn't happy with his performance, and he was like a child and threw his toys out the pram.
Yeah.
But the following day he came back and said I was a little bit out of order, because it was a bit disrespectful to the other people. Well, to the people that you saw some of those results when people won a bronze medal, and it meant the world to them at that point. Will they become Olympic champion? Possibly, probably not. So that meant an awful lot.
Let's talk about being disrespectful. There's going to be a documentary from Tom Daly about the Commonwealth nations who don't support LGBTQ, and as an openly gay man, gay advocate with things. Do you think Tom's got a point on all of this? And do you think that the Commonwealth itself needs to be educated or reform or show some goodwill on this front?
Yes, I do. I mean, I'm gay myself, but I mean, for someone to stand out there and stand up for not just what they believe, but what should be, because I think rules and regulations are archaic in a sense, and the world's moved on, and they weren't right in the first place. So things need changing. People need educated, and where does that start? It only starts when people stand up and stand on a platform and make a noise about it.
And is it hard to do that? I mean, we all know, obviously, about Tom Daly, but, is it still opening yourself up for criticism, scrutiny, all the rest of it? Or, it takes a
It takes a very strong person to stand out there, doesn't it? But, I mean, I look back to... I mean, I wasn't around at the time, but, I mean, I grew up as a gay man that felt what I wasn't able to be myself because of what I heard around me, from the playground to the changing room and just in society, what I read in the news. But looking back to the Stonewall riots back in the late 60s, early 70s, what people went through and how many people died trying to get equality, someone like Tom stepping out there, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. But will it change things? It will, but how slowly or how quickly that moves.
But what has it got to change? Sometimes I look, Mark, and I go, and I think, are people so stereotypical? They look like a big hunk of masculinity like Mark Foster, and they think, well, he couldn't. He couldn't
possibly be.
He couldn't possibly be. Is that basically what you're up against?
Yeah, I think the thing is, it was very easy for me to sort of tiptoe in the shadows and hide myself because I act straight. I am the way I am, and I think I hid behind sport in a sense. But for people out there that there still is a death penalty in certain countries, people in the UK are still beaten up for being gay or being different. That's not necessarily sexuality; it could be race as well. Then people need educating, and it needs highlighting.